Well, the first hard frost has come here to Old Stonewall Farm, leaving me with a pumpkin patch filled with some green pumpkins and some pumpkins that seem to never had a chance. I love pumpkins. They have been around for thousands of years. I never realized that. In fact, archaeologists discovered the oldest domesticated pumpkin seeds in Mexico, believed to have been 7,500 years old. The first pumpkins were not what we know of today, the sweet bright orange ones that we see in the fields, but they were small and they were quite bitter. The word pumpkin basically means large melon, and they are a symbol of prosperity and growth and abundance, as they are very resilient. Like this pumpkin vine that was growing in the back field where the chickens are. I threw old pumpkins there last year, and lo and behold, they started to grow. But the frost did get them, and not very many pumpkins had a chance to even get the size of a golf ball. Perhaps the chickens will enjoy them. It seems lately a lot of things are not going right. My pumpkins didn't get a chance to grow, and Nugget is still broody. She's been broody for a few months now, and she insists on laying on eggs to hatch them, and these aren't even her eggs. So I'm stuck with a broody chicken and green pumpkins. Luckily though, my borage I was able to harvest, and I'll be able to dry these flowers to make a nice tea. The dill was also still able to be salvaged, and I'll use that dill to make a nice salad dressing. It is the season here at Old Stonewall Farm to dig in deep and still look for the blessings all around. So my friends, come, welcome to my little home here in Vermont. I missed you all. I feel like I've been gone for a few weeks. The world has opened up for this accidental country pastor, and I have to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure how I'm feeling about that. And I'm a homebody, so it's been interesting for me to get used to going to the airport again and flying and so forth. I've been gone for 2 weeks, and as I said, I've missed you. You've been in my heart and in my prayers, and it's been crazy, but I am glad to be home for now and glad to be here with you at the start of what is starting to look like a beautiful autumn here in Vermont. I'm just looking out the windows, and some of the trees are beginning to change. I think it's going to be a late season. And I was nervous the other day when I was running on the trail. High winds picked up, I think because of the hurricane that hit Florida, and prayers for all of you who are in the wake of the hurricane or cleaning up afterwards. May God's grace be upon you, and may you find the strength and the courage to clean up and to rebuild. But when I was on the trail the other day and the high winds were picking up, I was noticing that the winds were blowing off the leaves off of the trees, and they were still green. And I was really getting to wonder if we were just going to have a lot of high winds this year that will blow off all of the leaves before they had time to turn color. That has happened before. So it's good to be home. It's good to be here in the kitchen of Old Stonewall Farm with all of you. And I wanted to share with you something that I'm beginning to make. I am cooking green pumpkins. Yes, the pumpkins, well, a hard frost hit when I was coming home last week from one of my most recent trips, and my flight was late, and I was coming home, driving home about 1 a.m. in the morning it was, and the airport, the closest airport to me is an hour and a half away. So I was driving home and the headlights told me that there is a frost, because the headlights, when they hit the fields, everything was like a ghostly white and just like sparkling. And I'm like, oh, that looks like frost. Sure enough, the next morning, all my pumpkins that were just starting to grow and get orange, they were all dead. The vine was just killed by the frost. If you salvage a few pie pumpkins, not many, so I think my pies are going to be really small. Some of them got to be orange, but there were a few of them that were just starting out, and they were still quite green. The one that I am cutting up now was very green. So I was disappointed because I love everything pumpkin. Yes, I am one of those pumpkin spice fanatics. If it has pumpkin on it, pumpkin flavor, I buy it. So when I noticed that my pumpkins that were beginning to grow, they had a late start. It was a late planting season here in Vermont, and I was really hoping for an Indian summer. I was really hoping for a warm fall to extend the growing season. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. In fact, I have not turned the heat on yet, but it was freezing this morning. So when I noticed that the pumpkins, the vines were killed, I was disappointed. And I looked at the green pumpkins and I thought, oh, what am I going to do with them? Maybe the chickens will enjoy them. I remember back to my childhood reading all of the Laura Ingalls Wilder books, Little House on the Prairie books. There was one book she wrote called The Long Winter, when they were out west, and it was a vicious, horrible winter that just really just had this little town just encased in ice and snow until spring. They were running low on food, and it was just very hard to survive. Well, in that book, Before the Snows Come, Laura remembers one morning that her father, Pa, went out to go hunting, and he saw some geese, so he thought, well, let me get some for tonight's supper. And Ma, the mother, notices that it's getting really cold early, and so she sends the girls out before the frost comes to pick the pumpkins that are not ripe yet. Go pick the green pumpkins. We might as well try to salvage them, save them, do something with them. So the girls go out and they bring in the green pumpkins, and Ma decides to cut up the green pumpkins, almost like apples in a way. You just, kind of core them and then take the seeds out and then do chunks. Well, she made green pumpkin pie. I have a recipe in one of my cookbooks that I will include here in the comment section, or you can go to accidentalcountrypasture.com and I will include the recipe there. But the green pumpkin pie recipe had chunks of green pumpkin, cut up like you would an apple. And it was apple cider vinegar, like a cup of it, and a cup of brown sugar and some flour, and of course a pie crust and whatever seasonings you might have. I have, for my green pumpkin, I have some nutmeg, and I also have some cinnamon. And so she makes this pie out of green pumpkins that you would never think of using. They're not ripe. And so when Pa comes home, he didn't get any geese. And so he was really, something was eating at him. He was down in the dumps about that, but he also noticed that everything was already dead. Everything was getting too cold too quickly. He noticed that the geese weren't around. He noticed that other wildlife wasn't around when they should have been around. So he knows that something's not right. Something is off with Mother Nature. Little did he know that it would be a long winter coming. So he's just thinking about all of that, and the worries are heavy on his shoulders. And it comes time for the girls to serve their father the pie, and he, the mother puts the pie down in front of him, and he looks. He's like, "Pie? What did you make pie from? We don't have any apples." Because he cuts into it, and it looks like apples. It's like, "Where'd you get apples for an apple pie?" And all the girls started laughing. "It's green pumpkin." When I was looking at my failed pumpkin patch and I noticed too many green pumpkins, I was getting depressed about it. And I just felt like, oh, geez, I really was counting on some pumpkins this year. Then I remembered green pumpkin pie and how it tasted like apple. So I decided to do some research on green pumpkins, and turns out that green pumpkins are actually quite delicious. In fact, I don't have enough to make a pie. Well, I probably could make a small pie here. What I'm doing with my green pumpkin is a recipe that I found from the 1700s, and basically it was just chopped pumpkins mixed with butter and seasonings. Again, I'm choosing cinnamon and nutmeg, more of those warm, earthy spices. And then you just fry it up. So I'm gonna get the fire going outside. The bake oven isn't ready yet. My stonemason has gone missing in action. He was making such great progress, and I really thought I would have that outdoor bake oven ready for all of you to share with you my first loaf of bread. At this point, I don't even know if I'm gonna have it ready by Thanksgiving, so prayers for that. But I'm gonna get a fire going outside, and I got my spider skillet to put over the fire. So it's a recipe I got from the 1700s where you just chop up the green pumpkin, and then you mix it with some butter and any kind of seasonings you want. Again, I went with the spicy seasonings, but you go more savory if you want as well. So I'm gonna try that recipe. It also turns out that green pumpkin was very popular in curry dishes. So in South America, in India, or any of those places, green pumpkin features a lot in curries and stews. Who knew? As I was thinking more and more about how tasty green pumpkin really is, it hit me. It hit me powerfully that so often I question God's provision. So often I don't question God's provision. I do believe in my heart when I pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." I do believe that God does see and hear and provide. So maybe not so much question God's provision, but trust God's provision. It seems like in this life, we tend to go either to a place of fear and scarcity, that we're not going to have enough, or we seek and hope and work so hard for abundance. So it's either we're in this mode of fearing we don't have enough, or working hard and setting our sights on having a lot. Scarcity and abundance. But there's a middle ground between scarcity and the abundance. And for me, I realized with the green pumpkins, that means believing that with God, we will always have enough. We will not always be wanting, and we might not always have an abundance of things, but what about just being happy and content and seeing the grace and the blessing in having enough? The green pumpkin, to me, it was all of a sudden my realization that I have all that I need. That here I thought these weren't edible, or I couldn't use them, and I thought I had a whole pumpkin patch that was just a failure, and what am I going to do with them now? I saw for the first time, when I saw those green pumpkins, when I saw pumpkins that were just starting to grow and all of a sudden they didn't have the chance to, I saw that there was still something redeemable in them. Many people ask me, why do I love exploring and living in a different time period? You know, what's wrong with modern times? And I think when it comes right down to it, why I'm so enthralled with an era, a bygone era, I'm so enthralled with it because, well, like Laura Ingalls Wilder and her mother in The Long Winter, they had to be resourceful. They had to look around at their situation, good or bad, challenging or easy. They had to step into the day, whatever that day might bring, and find blessings. They had to see in the challenges that God was still with them. They were resourceful. They took whatever their situation was, they took the trying times and the challenging times, and they found a way through them. They got through them. They found opportunities to overcome any challenges. They had a faith that trusted in a God of provision, a God who, let's just leave scarcity and abundance aside, they trusted in a God who promises enough for this very day. I am really interested in living in a different time period because I think it is the resourcefulness that they showed. Being resourceful and seeing the possibilities when others might see none at all. Seeing that in a green pumpkin, there really is a tasty pie waiting for you. And so, my friends, what are your green pumpkins today in your life? What might they be? What is something that you think is a failure or just not worthy anymore or just, I don't know what to do with it? Whatever it might be. Well, think about it. And then how can you see the possibilities? What are your green pumpkins? And how? How can you use a little creativity and have a lot of trust to turn your green pumpkin moment around? Well, I'm going to try this 18th century recipe of fried green pumpkins in butter and cinnamon and nutmeg. Get the fire going, get my spider skillet all ready to go and see what happens. And I'll serve them up with my Brussels sprouts tonight and some chicken. My husband, he has no idea what he's in for.
Why do I feel discouraged? Why do the shadows come? And why does my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home when Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is He. His eye is on the...
So I just took the green pumpkin off of the fire from the spider skillet, and it is absolutely delicious. I never ever would have thought of cooking green pumpkin, but it is really good. Tender, buttery, a little bit sweet from the cinnamon. I highly recommend.
So I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because